Yaida da 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 da. Yaida 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 da da. Yaida da yaida da da yaida. Yaida da da. Yaida da da. Yai dai dai dai, yai dai dai dai, yai dai dai dum, yai dai dai dai, yai dai 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 dai. Yai dai dai dai, yai dai dai dum, yai dai 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 dum, yai dai yai dai dai dum, yai dai dai dum. Boker Tov, good morning. It is weird weather. I walked out of the house and it was like so sunny where the sun felt like it was burning your skin instantly. I dropped Ellis off at camp and I got out of the car there, which is 1.3 miles away, and it was overcast and humid. I came back home and it was, I'm not sure what it is, hazy and strange. It's kind of like the way the world feels. Like in one moment you feel like you're in a bright light, and the next you feel like you're in a dark corner. You're sweating, you're not. You're in the air condition, you're not. It's kind of strange, right? It's kind of strange. And so we think about the strangeness of the month of Av. We think of the destruction, we think of the mourning period, we think of lamentations, we think of like being low in order to feel what it feels like to be brought up, to be lifted. And so there's a lot of things going on in the world, as we know. We've been talking about things in the world for a long time. And so the things for Israel, the things in the surrounding areas of the Middle East, there are things here in America, the vice president announcing her running mate, things that are happening. And so as we enter this month of Av together, more brokenness in the world is always revealing itself. There's one thing to be said, though, when something breaks, when something is fractured, when something needs to be mended. I won't use repair. When something has to be mended, we take the fragments, and in the fragments, we find ourselves in places of healing or pathways to healing. The word mend, that's been coming to mind often, and not because Ellis likes that word from Peppa Pig. The definition of mending is to improve. The definition, another definition or understanding of the word mend is to repair. But perhaps the most meaningful definition of mending is to heal something, to improve its condition, to improve, to heal, to sew together, to make strong again. There is a way to care for a torn heart. There is a way to care for a ravaged spirit. There are ways to help mend. There are ways to renewed sacredness for what is good and for what is just. I've heard countless times in the last, I don't know, maybe month or so, probably even longer, but certainly in the last month, with political agendas, I've heard so many people say, ugh, there's nothing we can do. We hear it all the time. Oh, the world is broken. Ugh, the world sucks. Ugh, this is no good. Oh, the turmoil. Nothing will ever change. But worse than nothing will ever change is there's nothing we can do. How could that be true? There's nothing we can do. There's always something that we can do, regardless of what situation we're in. There's always something we can do. Sometimes we may choose not to, and that's okay. But to say that there's nothing we can do is unacceptable. Because nothingness is a choice. I've had a lot of people say to me really dumb things. I don't think any of you have said it, so I'm going to say it here anyway. Maybe if it was, maybe you'll think about it differently. Things like, if I were you, if I was in your situation, I wouldn't even get out of bed. Or, if I were you, well, I'd probably never leave my house again. If I were you, whatever the situation was. That's when there's nothing that we can do. There's always something that we can do. Always. Even if it's not perfectly ideal, even if it isn't the way you thought it would be, no matter what, there is always something that we can do. Because otherwise it implies impossible. To me, impossible means we're defeated. To me, impossible means that, well, I just lost any hope, any chance, any possibility, any desire to do anything. Because if it's impossible, we give up. But giving up isn't an option when we need to mend our own hearts, our fractured world, our families, our society, our humanity. Part of the brokenness in this world is the idea, is the notion that there's nothing we can do. It's impossible. And from that brokenness is where we remain divided and where we remain afraid. It's the truth. It doesn't matter how you look at it. A major part of brokenness is the idea that there's nothing we can do. It's impossible. And it leaves us in a place that keeps us divided and afraid. But that's not the mindset we choose. I mean, you might choose it. We can all choose something. We can. It's not about because I can. It's because we all can. Who cares? Each of us has our own situation. Some of them are worse than others. But even in the darkest pit of Av, even in being brought low to be laying on the ground, still, there's something we can do. There's always something we can do. Because every day, we can mend. Maybe it won't be, it won't be that all of a sudden that frayed quilt of humanity is perfectly restored. Of course it's not. It's always going to have its mend marks. It's always going to have the extra stitches that it needed to hold it together. It's always going to be that. But if we don't do the work, if we don't try, then we remain torn and frayed. And from there, we can't become anything. We need those fragments in order to bring about the ability to mend. We need those fragments as a way, as a pathway toward healing and wholeness. Because every day we can mend. Some of these are simple. Some of them a little more complex. Some of them we can just take at surface value, or we can choose to dive deep. The difference in each of our lives is our desire, not our ability. It's about desire. You don't have to go from point A to point B, and if you don't get all the way there, you're a failure. You just have to say, here I am in point A today. I don't know when I'll get to B, but I'm going to do everything in my power to do something. Because there are things we can control. There's always something we can do. Every day we can mend. How? Maybe it's through an act of love or a practice of compassion. We can offer thanks. We can open our eyes and see the beauty in the world, even when it looks ugly. We can allow sadness and pain because they're real. We can reach out to one another. We do that beautifully as a community here, each and every day. We can mend when we ask for help. We can mend when we offer support. We can mend as we recognize and honor what is ours to give. Because every day we can mend. Because there's nothing we can do is not acceptable. Every day we can mend as we return again and again and again, over and over. It feels like we're in a hamster wheel. But over and over, if we keep returning to kindness and patience and care and practice them, every day we can mend. Brokenness, unfortunately, is at the core of creation. And so it always reverts back there. Creation is creation. And if it was done perfectly, there would be nothing for us to do in the world. We say this all the time. Torah leaves us spaces between the letters and bigger spaces between the words. Even bigger spaces between the paragraphs. The spaces are our place of co-creation, our place of interpretation, our place of the ability to say, wait a second, that makes no sense. Or I'm questioning that, but I'm going to find the bridge between those two words, between those two phrases, between those two verses, between that which was and that which is. Just as brokenness is at the core of creation, so too is the potential to heal. So in this month of Av, especially the beginning of it, before we get to Tisha B'Av, sadness and grief guide us. I often say at funerals that grief is the greatest teacher, for it teaches us how to go back and bless the living with empathy and compassion. We need to do our work to put love into the brokenness. Not just for your own sake, but for the sake of each other and for the sake of all life. Because why? There is always something that we can do. There is always healing that can be done. In the world revealed, there are so many fragments. But in mending ourselves, each other, the torn hearts, we find renewal of self, renewal of community, renewal of humanity. So for the sake of each other, let's get mending. We are one human family, one heart of abundant love. We love you. I'll see you back here tomorrow, which is Wednesday. And I'm grateful to have been with you. Elisa and Rabbi Jay, Janaba, Lida, Debbie, Paula, Anne, Somebody else was on here, but I don't see it now. If you're here, I'm grateful that you're here. Let's continue to show up. Let's continue to be. Let's continue to mend for the sake of each other. Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael Chai. 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 Od Avinu Chai. Have a great day, everyone. We'll see you back here tomorrow at 9:30.